Hello, glorious listeners. Welcome back to another beautiful episode of Age of Awæcnian, Soulful Stories Unveiled. I haven't sung it in a while. I've said it a few times, so I felt the singing vibes and the creativity flowing through. How are you feeling, Flea?
I'm feeling fabulous. I'm a little bit confused at what tech is doing right now. So for those people that are watching a stripe about this big, hopefully that's not the case and it is just my phone setting. But you can hear us. So that is a benefit and a beautiful thing. Yes.
Positive. That's positive. And you know what, everybody? You can always catch the replays on our Facebook page, hopefully, if it comes up on YouTube, and also our website. We've got all of our past amazing podcast guests featured on there, and you can go back and have a listen because these stories are just phenomenal. I love a good story, and I love diving into just getting to know people through this conversational style. And Flea and I were talking about this energy of storytelling this morning and this relational aspect of why we love communicating this way. What is it that you love about the power of stories, Flea?
It's really the authenticity. I have spent most of my life seeking the truth from people. So I'm known as an observer. I'm usually the person that's sitting in the back, doesn't have a lot to say, but I hear everything. And I guess for me, like these type of stories where we get to be really real and honest, it builds a connection that is far superior to any of the shallow types of conversations that most people deal with in their day to day. And I just like that it has the potential to go anywhere. It's not hidden by restraints of society. Like, we do talk about the woo woo. We do talk about some hard conversations and some random things. So I love that honesty that gets to come out through these conversations. And just the connection too, like really understanding that we are all the same. And even though we may use different terms, those expressions are still similar. And that really makes me feel connected. So that's what I love the most.
Oh, I love that. Me too. And our next beautiful guest, I feel, has this same passion for storytelling and authenticity. And we're so excited to have Crystal Leonardi, who I met at the beautiful Beam Awards a couple months ago now. And she won these beautiful awards. And she had this beautiful, it was a yellow dress. Is that right? You had this beautiful yellow ball going on. And I was like, this vibrant color. And so, Crystal has an extensive background. I'm going to try and capture it all, but born and raised in far north Queensland, she is an award-winning author and publisher, and she dedicates her time to writing and empowering others to write and publish through her unique business, Bowerbird Publishing. She's not only a publisher, but she is a keynote speaker. She has had a wealth of transformation and I suppose journeying into, her path, and we just briefly touched on it. And I suppose through some of the tragic diagnoses that you experienced, Crystal, you came out of that feeling stronger, more powerful, inspiring others. And I love that you've got so many beautiful things under your belt. And there's so many more things, but I love your positivity. I love your vibe, and welcome. I'd love for you to share a little bit more about you and what you love doing.
Yeah, thank you so much. And Marie, thank you so much for coming and introducing yourself at the awards, because I'm obviously, I'm a really confident person, but I do get shy in these big settings with lots of people, the glamour, the nerves with the awards and that sort of thing. So I really appreciated you coming and saying hello. And yeah, mutually, I just got a great vibe off you. So it's wonderful to be here. And look, I guess, my journey is really complex. And to sum it up, I basically lived nearly 40 years, really uninhibited by tragedy, trauma, any of that. And I absolutely felt fulfilled and happy and blessed in my life. And unfortunately, when the tides changed and I was dealt a really, really tough card with my youngest child, um, I realized that perhaps, you know, there was more to my life. You know, I needed this shift to make me grasp life, you know, and make the most of it and appreciate every single day, because it was just rolling on by, you know. And like I said, blissfully, I was happy, but was I really making the most of every opportunity? And was I really using my gifts and my talents to the best of my ability to help others? Absolutely not. I was just sort of coasting along. So, um, yeah, it's interesting. It's not like anybody else's story, which is one of the hard parts, but also one of the good parts about living through trauma and tragedy is that I don't know anyone else who's been through what I've been through. So that can be quite isolating. But yeah, so yeah, moving on and moving up, and really, really loving the energy in my life right now. So I guess just to give the listeners an idea of, you know, what happened to us in 2020, January, like the 8th of January, so the very, very beginning of 2020, my youngest of 4 children, my son, he was 2 years old and he was diagnosed with brain cancer. So that began quite a traumatic and just tragic, I guess, set of events. He is still with us. It's always what people want to know straight away. Is he okay? Yes, he's still with us. His treatment is ongoing. His mortality is unknown. We don't know how long we've got with him, but he is okay at the moment, and he's attending school part-time. He's now 6, turning 7 soon. So I have a lot. Overall, I have a lot to be grateful for. And I know a lot of families in our similar situation aren't as fortunate as us to still have their child. So I take a lot away from the positives of our situation, even though there's a lot of heavy, bad stuff going on still. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. It's been interesting, like these themes around tragedy and trauma, whether it's our close loved ones or extended family or people in our community. I feel like there's still a lot of taboo around talking about what death looks like, if that, you know, what these, yeah, these hard parts around life and death and these polarities.
Yeah.
And Flea and I had some amazing guests on a couple of weeks ago that shared some of their journeys with other family members that had passed, whether it was sudden death, their husband's passing, or even committing suicide, and dealing, I suppose, with cancer, you know, these health conditions where people sometimes don't know what to say
Yeah.
and feel awkward, and then they start treating you differently. Like, how
Yeah.
have you navigated that, I suppose, in your relationships with people around you?
Yeah, it's really polarizing. And look, from, you know, coming from an absolute place of love, I really sympathize with those who think they can't find the words. And I don't know what the answer is for that. I think, you know, as long as we all remain really authentic, and it's okay to just say, I don't know what to say, or to just say, I'm sorry. You don't have to have the right words. Often people going through hardship, they don't really need you to say anything. They just need you to be there. So if that puts anyone's mind at rest, And, some wonderful advice I was given very early on in my son's diagnosis was when someone says, "What can I do to help you?" Don't say, "Oh, nothing, we're fine." Just say, "I don't know, but just do something." So I always say, if someone's had a death in the family or there's been a natural disaster, don't ring up and ask them if they need something. Take a meal over. Just turn up or bake some cookies and take them over. Just do it. And it will always be appreciated because they really are in a time of desperation and need. So anything you provide will help. But I guess for me too, something I learned when we were going through everything was when there's fear involved with a medical diagnosis, for example, of any kind, or someone's in an accident, because you're in such a state of shock and you just, what happens is you sort of lose the ability to communicate. You very much, for me, I found that you completely internalize. And I don't know if that's your body's or your spirit's way of protecting itself, but I found it really hard to talk about it. Not in a way that I was like, I don't want to talk about it, but I couldn't find the words. I could barely describe how I was feeling, let alone try and explain to people what was actually happening. So when we, after about 12 months, when we were able to take our son home, and, I was feeling extremely lucky that we were actually able to take our child home, was that I really decided that I was ready to sort of share our experience and hope that storytelling was a way of bridging the gap between, I guess, sufferers and survivors. So people who are sort of feeling really lost because they don't know how to communicate. So, so I actually wrote a memoir, which was basically the year that my son was diagnosed and everything we went through, emotional impact, social impact, all of those things that come with really difficult situations where people just don't know what to say and they don't know what to do. So yeah, that was really the beginning of my using storytelling as my way of healing, but not just healing myself, healing my family, and also healing the readers that happen to pick up the book and read it. And yes, I mean, it's a tragic thing, but it's so uplifting and hopeful because at the end of the day, we still have my son, and we're also living now to our absolute fullest potential. And cherishing every single day far more than we ever were before. So feeling really blessed for those lessons, even though it was hard pill to swallow in the beginning. I'd rather not have it and just continue on the path we were on and living in bliss and not worrying about this sort of stuff. So feeling really grateful for the experience and the growth that came out of it.
Those cards that came out before, one of the first cards, it didn't really come out, but it was like a clump that sort of went to the side, and I had a peek at it before we started, and it was the emotional loss card. And considering everything else here, I was like, I don't think that one fits. But then I was looking for it as you were talking. I'm like, I had that card. I did. And the other one that did come out, though, was that emotional withdrawal. And
yes,
it connects a lot. Like you were talking a lot about this emotional loss, but in your situation, the loss actually hasn't really occurred. And that
and I do
separation is that emotional withdrawal, really, isn't it?
Correct. And I do talk about that a lot in my book because when you're diagnosed with a life-threatening illness or a terminal illness, but the expiry date, let's call it, isn't presented to you, so it's like, well, it's going to happen, but we don't know when. It could be 50 years, it could be 5, we don't know. You do go through the stages of grief, but you're not actually grieving the person's death. you're grieving their health, and that may not sound all that profound, but I went through this massive period of grief, and through, lots of therapy and reading and growing, and letting go a little bit too. I learnt that I was grieving my son before he was diagnosed. So I had lost that child because he was, after surgery, after chemotherapy, after all the intervention that had to happen to save his life, he was a different person. So I was grieving him and his health, and that's ongoing. But yeah, that's a huge emotional shift that has to happen in order to be able to successfully do that and come out the other side, to go, okay, I need to go through this grief. I need to accept it. I need to face it head on. And then I need to get over, not over it, but I need to get past it to be able to willingly and openly love our new situation, or our new level of what normal is,
Mm.
and accept it. And that's
It's
and that's yeah.
it's like an identity. It's like a grieving of identity loss. Like, it reminds me of my, I suppose, journey with miscarriages. And it was, even though for me, that there was like these ideas and hopes and futures and
Yeah.
this identity of myself and this potential human being and of my family that I had envisaged, that
Hmm.
was, and myself, and it was a loss of identity of what I expected life
Yes.
was going to be like. And so,
Yeah.
and I feel like this piece around even our children, I think, my daughter who's 8, like, just letting go of the things I think she's going to be,
Hmm.
and allowing that presence, like you're saying, in the moment to unfold. And I
Hmm.
think these parts of grief of ideas, grief of who you think you are, who you think your family's going to be, these ideas that we stick onto,
Yeah.
we get thrown back into our bodies. And that numbness, that disconnect that you were talking about, Flea, is a part of this. Yeah,
Heart, tapping into the heart. Yeah.
it's
Mm.
also like a shedding of
Yes.
of these future selves that we think our families or we're going to be. And like you said, you are cherishing every moment with your family like you've never done before. And
Mm.
the presence of the now,
Yeah.
I feel like as humans in general, we get stuck in the stories of the past or the stories of the future, and we forget to live in the now. So I love
Yes.
that you kind of bring that back into your own essence of how you show up for yourself and your family,
Mm.
Yeah.
and in the stories you get to tell as well and speak about, which is really
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, a big behavior I had to change was, which I found it really hard, because I do believe always I've been an optimist. I'm always been a very positive person. Um, but I was always looking forward, always 10 steps ahead of myself. So something I learned and something I had to change was taking, and it sounds really not even cliche, but just really simple, that one day at a time. So, what are you presented with today, and how can you improve that? And what can't you change? And what do you need to do to sit with that and be okay with that? And that helps a lot for us as a family unit, because sure, we have days where you're overwhelmed with worry, about the unknown stuff, but it always comes back to, what do we know to be true right now? What can we what about that is something we are in control of? It's often not a lot, um, but that's okay too, because with the negative comes the positive. So it's a lot of surrendering. It's a lot of, I
Mm.
think after what we went through, I shed a lot of fear. I did feel like I realized I was quite afraid of everything. I was afraid of failure. I was afraid of fun. I was afraid of adventure. I was very comfortable. And so to go through something that completely rocked me to my core has sort of allowed me to, I guess, emerge as someone who I'm not scared of the unknown stuff anymore, because it will be what it will be. And I know what I'm in control of, and all I can do is my best to steer things in the direction I want it to. And if that I pull that off, that's great. If not, it just wasn't meant to happen. So feeling extremely empowered in myself, and feeling more confident to be guided by my gut and my, whatever else is urging me to do certain things, or pursue certain goals. So yeah.
Touched my heart there. One of the other cards was a power card, and what you've just spoken into there is one of those types of power. And even though what you're saying is, like you said, it's an experience most people haven't. Like, I've experienced a life of trauma that most people would never have experienced. And, that recognition, even though I haven't experienced that, I can see the patterns in my life of where those emotional overwhelm, the loss, the grief, the fear, like all of that coming into part. Like, most of us are so scared and worried about what's going to happen that we refuse to make any choices until some type of catastrophe jumps in.
Correct.
And what you've been demonstrating so beautifully is the gift that you actually get. So, the situation could have been different. It could have been something that wasn't picked up, and health choices or lifestyle choices could have impacted and made his life potentially shorter. Having this awareness, as difficult as it is, and it's the same in most life experiences, if we have that awareness of it, we have the ability to make steps in the right direction to what's suitable. And this is where the power in the share is. And it's not to be unemotional or like rude or taking away from your experience in any way, because that's like so heartfelt and so valid. But in these shares, like what we take away as a human being is what it means for us. And what you just shared there was that, why am I scared to step into my power? Like, these things are uncontrollable. I cannot say what is going to happen. It could be a complete success. It could be another failure. Like, these moments, we only have the now.
Yeah.
That is it. And it's powerful
Absolutely.
to just have that reminder, even though it's really difficult and emotional, to go, okay, we're talking about, a life-threatening disease that is attacking us. But at the same time, it's the disease of the heart that's attacking all of us. This
Yes.
loss, this connection, this expectation of a life that we're not guaranteed. We're only guaranteed to live, not to have the reality we expect. Like this.
Yeah, and I guess, I absolutely found that truth through storytelling, and I think that for me was the catalyst for then going on and doing what I'm doing now. Through sharing my story and my struggle, mostly my struggles, and the cycles that I went through of depression and anger, then sadness, and all that sort of thing. Even those people who hadn't experienced a cancer diagnosis, perhaps, but had lived through any trauma, had survived any sort of traumatic event, could appreciate that, life is those ups and those downs. And it's about what you do in those down moments to get yourself back up that really counts. So I found so much power in my storytelling journey, and it really became something that I thought I was meant to do this. I maybe perhaps am not at peace with the fact that I'm okay with having a child who has cancer, because that's absolutely awful. But it happened because I needed to find my true path of being a storyteller and helping other people tell their stories, as a bigger movement of I have to find another word other than empowerment, but that's where what I'm feeling is that empowering people to step up, and speak their truth, and hopefully help, shine a light on somebody else's successes and survivorship. So, publishing for me, it happened accidentally, sort of, but I couldn't ignore it anymore. People were coming to me wanting me to help them tell their story after reading my memoir, and yeah, they just said, you're so brave to tell your story and be so honest and raw. But for me, it had to have all those layers, the dark and the light, to be authentic and to be real. Yeah, for people to relate.
It's the awareness card there, and that's
Yeah.
so in touch with what you said up the top. It's actually the magician, and what you're doing right now by sharing that story is alchemy. You're
Yeah.
transmuting the fear and the pain, and even though it's still there and you've still expressed it, like that, there gets to then go into that justice and that balance,
Yeah.
that taking the two together and coming back in. It's so beautiful.
So powerful. And that justice card is also about truth, honoring that authentic truth. And like you said, Crystal, like you've got to have you've got to have the shadow and the darkness for this human experience, to have the contrast, to have, the richness of feeling what that feels like, to feel what numbness and not knowing how to communicate feels like. So the other end of being able to help share your story, communicate, and help others who are feeling that share their stories. That's powerful. And like you
Yeah. And
said,
when you're living fearlessly, you are so much more open to being able to truly listen to other people's stories, but then to also be able to relate in a way that makes them feel comfortable to share with you. So, yeah, like I said, I've always been a really positive person before, but I don't believe I was really a good listener because I didn't have those levels or those depths of my own human experience where I could actually relate to hardships or trauma or tragedy, or death, grief, all of that. I was just skimming the surface. So, um, when it doesn't scare me anymore when someone says, "Oh, I want to write a book about my brother's suicide," let's say. I'm like, yeah, let's do this. I'm not scared. I'm not scared to hear those truths. I'm not scared to hear the hard stuff. It's an important part of some people's journey is to be able to share their story with other people. And storytelling it runs through every culture on the planet, in all different ways, not just through books, but you think about campfire and storytelling, women's circles. It's always there in every life on earth. So I choose to put it in a book form. But oh yeah, it's such an important part of everybody's souls too. We grow up with stories being told to us about our ancestors, and then we're read stories in schools, and it's such an enriching part of life. And one of the great joys of life is to hear a story and feel all those emotions that it makes you feel.
yeah,
Mm.
beautiful.
Mm.
Yeah, like you said, it's ancient and it's ingrained in the human experience, whether it's written, whether it's spoken, whether it's through
Drawn.
dance or through the arts,
Yeah.
through poetry, through colors.
Mm.
It's how we interpret meaning and feeling. And I think that feeling piece is something that I just really connect with. Like if I'm in a good book and I just feel that person, that story, or if I hear somebody and you
Mm.
feel it in the heart, like there is power in that. And like what you said, Flea, before, alchemy. When we
Mm.
talk, when we write, when we listen, it gets to change somebody's heart. And the piece around listening, interestingly, I was at a mum's networking dinner last night, and the speaker there was talking about fertile listening and
Mm-hmm.
this skill of deeply engaging in someone's story, through eye contact, through the felt experience, through the heart, through if you're taking notes or whatever. But I feel like similarly to you, that listening piece has been
Mm.
a big lesson for me, particularly in the last 6 to 8 months of listening to other people's um, needs, their
Mhm.
emotions in relationships, and how to navigate my gifts and their gifts and come to this balancing point of okay, I hear you, I honor you, I see that that's how you're working and how you receive things. How can I adjust myself but still honor my truth and story?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a beautiful dance that we then get to weave with
Mm-hmm.
each other, with how we communicate,
Yeah.
and learn, which is the whole piece about, you know, I mean, you just automatically learn, I feel, because you're just absorbing whatever lands for you in the written form or the verbal form. And that's how we evolve and how we grow.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, gosh. And so, with this journey in publishing
Mm.
for you, did you find this like as a really creative outlet for you to write your own story, share that cathartic as well, but helping other people find that creative spark within them? I'd love to know
Yeah.
about that
Yes,
side.
so I'm to my core a creative. So my whole life, I've dabbled in being an artist, and I've wanted to be a dressmaker. I've always it wasn't until later on that I realized I needed my creative outlet to balance my life, but it was happening all the time. I was always looking for a creative outlet to balance out the ups and downs and everything that comes in with life, So so it definitely speaks to that side of me, publishing. Um, in more ways than I ever expected. It sounds like a very vanilla job, publishing a book, but in fact, when we talk about um, designing covers and designing internal pages, illustrating, I also do MP4 production for book trailers. All of that side of it really speaks to that creativity, and that's without even considering the whole writing aspect. So, me
Mm.
as an author, absolutely, the writing for me has been the most fulfilling and cathartic side of publishing. I get so much out of sharing my stories, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, to witness how it makes somebody else feel is super rewarding and obviously very um, you can't it's hard to put into words, something you've created makes somebody feel good, which is a wonderful feeling. um, but yeah, so yes, writing is certainly speaking to that creative side of me. And I think a lot of authors or writers don't consider themselves creative people. They can be very academic writers or, writing their autobiography. But when it comes down to it, there's a lot of creative influence that goes into creating a book. Even if someone doesn't realize they're doing it, they are putting their vision together through words, so their creative vision. So yeah, I'm all about honouring my author's creativity. I don't like to go in and change too much. I'm just sort of here to, I guess, make it look beautiful, professional, and industry standard, um, whilst exploring the author's vision and creativity as well. So yeah, absolutely. Creativity is a huge part of publishing, and I think that's why I love it so much because it speaks to that side of me. And even when I'm editing, it's a creative job, So I do love it.
I love that.
That
And the fact that you said you were talking about the creativity there, it is everything that we do. It's not,
Yeah,
if you decide to take a walk and you step to the side, like that's creation in itself, like
yeah,
just taking a little sidestep or a detour or
mm,
something, that's
absolutely.
creativity. And a lot of our language, of course, it'll be glitching. A lot of our language is very much that expression of creativity. Like when we share a story, it's our expression of our experience. We
mm,
write a poem, we make a picture, we interact with a certain group of people. All of that is the exact same creative essence and energy that we all need to tap into to feel that belonging, that sense of neededness or togetherness, that value in
mm.
ourselves.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm,
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah.
just like storytelling, creativity it's in our core, and everybody even those who don't realize they're creative. We all use our hands and our minds to create something that makes us feel good, or relaxes us, or, there's always some aspect in our lives that to me is creative and is a creative outlet. And it's about that balance. What our soul really needs, is balance. And so it's just about really listening to what our bodies want and what our minds need to do in order to find that balance. So
I love
yeah.
that. And like you said, like when you are creative and you're in your genius zone, you love what you do. So it doesn't feel like work
No.
because you get to play and you get to support people. And I think that's the whole point of us remembering what that inner child wants, what that creative part of us is yearning for,
Yeah.
and to feel into the now and be present in the now.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that really resonates with all of us here, which is beautiful because, you know, getting back into your body, like we get so stuck in our minds, like you were saying, knowing what the mind wants is very important, but then getting into your hands, into your body. And Flea and I were talking this morning about this creative process where, you know, writing it down or drawing or just tapping into your essence and getting it out of your body somehow
Yeah.
physically
Yep.
is, whether it's through the artwork or whatever, while you're thinking or talking to somebody about it,
Yeah.
is a process that I think is so undervalued because yes, I love technology, but so many of us are getting lost in all the logistics and the quickness. It is a beautiful tool to help the process, but coming back into that body, I think, is really an important point. I'd love for you to share about this piece about the creative process in the body and also your use of, I suppose, technology and insights on like use of AI
Yeah.
and how you blend those worlds together.
Yeah, sure. Just something I learnt when I was writing my memoir, um, was, and I don't remember where it came from. Maybe it was an epiphany one day. Maybe I heard it or read it somewhere. But something that really spoke to me creatively was when I was writing, I was actually taking a lot of trauma, a lot of worry, sadness, but also the highs. I was taking them away from my mind and putting them what I used to call a safe place, which was on paper or on a screen. When I was writing, it was like filtering out what I didn't need to hold on to and put it in a safe place, which was in my book. And that was super, cathartic is a word to use, but I don't know how else to put it. But it was such a wonderful process to go through because it made me feel so good. One, because I was shifting that energy away from me and maybe from my heavy heart at the time, but also then knowing that that energy shift was going to potentially help someone else when they read it down the track. So yeah, really, really very powerful moment there I had. I remember I was in the hospital, and I was up writing really late one night, and I just remember this is so good. I'm putting this in a safe place. And if I want to go back and read it, I can. If I don't want to, I don't have to. So yeah, but so yes, in publishing, AI is hugely exciting. So it's really interesting, this journey with AI in the publishing industry, because probably 12 to 18 months ago, I think we were all shaken in our boots because there was all this energy around, robots are going to start writing books in 5 minutes and all this sort of garbage. Um, Look, what I've learned, and I was fortunate enough to be awarded a scholarship through JCU up here in Cairns and last year, and I did a course on AI and how it's affecting writing and creative processes, which is, I thought, well, if you can't beat them, join them. I was like, well, if a robot's going to write a book in 5 minutes, I've got to work out how I'm going to outwit this process. So what I learned though, and what's a really important message that I always assure people with, is that AI is wonderful. It's a wonderful tool. However, human creativity is also wonderful. When you put the two together, it's dynamite. So I always say, AI is to be seen as a tool to enhance our creativity or our writing. And I think that's really important. Like any technology, it can be taken in the really negative direction in a bad way. People abuse it, people use it and claim it to be their own. But I think I know myself as a creative, I don't get any joy out of using AI to write my stuff. I want to write it. If AI is going to help me with my spelling and grammar, perfect. That's all I want. I don't want it to sound like an artificial, an intelligence writing my pieces. So I use AI every single day in my work in the publishing industry. I have absolutely embraced AI, and I think it's not going away. So in some respects, a lot of us creatives need to. Um, and it can be as simple as like, for example, when I do my book trailer productions, I use AI to make, for example, an image turn into emotion. So if it's a photo of a man on a hill, well, I can make the man on the hill walk down the hill. So little things like that, that are relatively harmless. It's not hurting anybody, and it's not, tricking anyone, so to speak. So I use it from a visual perspective in my creativity, but also, from that production side, as far as a book is concerned. I use lots of AI to speed processes up in the respect that, what's the best way to explain it? So rather than copying and pasting, I can create an instruction or a direction to my AI, and it will do a certain amount of work for me. So yeah, I'm certainly embracing it, like I said, and it's enhancing my business. I contract work out to editors and that sort of thing, but for the most part, I'm a sole trader. So it has allowed me to slimline processes and get things done that perhaps would have taken me 3 times the amount of 3 hours more than it should have. So yeah, is there anything more specific you're wanting
No,
me to?
that
No.
that
Yeah,
was
does that
spot on.
cover it? It's
Exactly,
hard.
exactly the conversation that we were having earlier was
Yeah,
that it's like, there's just something about being able to do it yourself that feels better. And
absolutely.
I love it as well. For It's great for organization and like the
Yep.
quickness of, okay, I need a structure.
Yes.
Sometimes that can create a block and then you don't get started. So having that in place is it is a tool that's really beautiful. Like what we're on right now, like Vimeo has the ability to switch screens and do all these things. Like it is an AI tech. Yes, it's
Absolutely.
not
And I
thinking
think
for itself, but it's
I
still
think a lot of
doing,
people.
it's still creating more for what we want.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are using AI and they don't even realize it. And I think AI has been around for a long time. I think it's absolutely, with Chat GPT and all those sorts of programs that have absolutely brought it to the forefront. And look, it's everywhere. I'm on a lot of boards for certain committees. I'm a judge for certain competitions, and people are using AI. Let me tell you, and it's really obvious. So, just to bring it back to when you're a creative, let's say you're a writer, if you're a creative person, write yourself, write, get in there and write your first draft. Absolutely shoot it through AI to improve sentence structure and grammar and that sort of thing. But it still needs to sound authentically you. And I think as soon as we lose that, we've lost to AI. So, yeah, it's just all about that balance and making sure that we're using it to improve our work, not take over. It would be like an artist. It's like I always think of it. Maybe this is my creative brain. I always think of it like Photoshop. So it's
Yes.
just like taking a photo that's pixelated and throwing it through Photoshop, and it makes it look smooth and perfect. Same thing. It's just enhancing what's already creatively there and already yours. So um,
Mm.
yeah, it's tough.
And you definitely see that when you work with it a lot more too. Like I've got a hand, like the first section of a couple of different books, and I thought, oh, cool, I can finish this really quickly. and I put in all my information and I copied it all over and say, okay, now help me with the next chapter.
Yes.
And it jumps ahead. So, it's one of those things, like, if you think it's going to be useful and it's going to finish it, if there's no validity to your content, yeah, it probably can. But if you're trying to create a structure that is true to your story, what I found is I ended up with a brother and some other things, and it was like, how did you get that from my prompt? Like, this
Yeah.
doesn't make it easier. Now I've got to take all of that out and then trying to go
Yeah.
back and find these different things. It was like, this is not easier. It
No.
definitely would have been easy to complete the book and then go, okay, yeah, fix it up and make it more entertaining, or,
Correct.
like you said, the sentence structure or something
Yeah. I mean, I have
like
to
that.
admit, I
That
do.
tonality, it's not that good.
Yeah, no. And look, I occasionally, I sort of, let's say I have, I'm commissioned to write an article for a magazine. And there are days when I do experience, I wouldn't say it's writer's block, but I just can't find the words for what I want to say. So you can type out your concept and your ideas, and even to the point where I know with sometimes I can say, look, I really want to focus on this aspect of my business and what I do because it's really important to the theme of this article or whatever. And you can ask AI to provide you a writing prompt, a sentence that says, use this as your writer's prompt, and it gets you out of that, I guess, blockage that sometimes happens with writers and creatives, where you know what you want to say but you just can't say it. Or and so I think if you use it correctly, it can it can be a really great enhancer for your business, but also the creative mind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I think it's like with the
Seeing it as the
prompting.
tool as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yes,
It's
the
absolutely.
tool, the prompts. Like I think I did a beautiful workshop last year where it's like taking text that you have written, you can get the prompter to analyze your tone, your authentic voice, and
Yes.
get the AI to then remember that. And then for those that are listening, and this is then how you bring more of that authenticity to that process. But like you said, you still need to read and draft and check over your work and check that it's like not
Absolutely.
creating other family members for you.
Exactly. And as a really good example, probably my favorite thing to do to use AI for is let's say I have an essay that's 1,000 words and the word limit is 800. I can actually ask AI to reduce it by 200 words without losing the powerful message, without losing integrity. And that I could sit there and do that for 3 hours to reduce 200 words without losing the point of the whole essay. So again, and that's freeing up time for me to do more writing and submit more articles and that sort of thing. So yeah, like I said, I absolutely love AI. I do use it every single day. And I think it's just about embracing what's coming. This is the
Yeah.
future. So get with it or get left behind, I always say. And education
We
is
went
key.
we went from the hammer and the nail to now we have electronic drills and
Exactly.
nail guns and things like that. Like, all it is doing is just increasing productivity. It's the how we
Absolutely.
use it, and that's what we're
It's,
about, is that teaching that
yeah.
ethical use
And
of these beautiful tools.
it's human nature to be skeptical and to be afraid of change. You think about the very first mobile phones that came out. There was such a huge percentage of people who were like, I will never have a mobile phone. Now you're convincing those same people that they need to upgrade to the latest iPhone. They're also the same people who didn't want to move from their flip phone to a touch screen. So we are evolving. It takes us time. Human nature is safety in no changing. So keep it the same, and it's safe. I know this. I understand this. I don't want to change it. But the change is happening more rapidly now, and it's I think for the most part is super positive, and it's if I had to do everything how things were before AI, I definitely couldn't run this business, editing without programs and software I can publish 15 books a year, that I would be down to 2 because it would just take me so long. It'd be very labor intensive and literally, yeah, back with a red pen and manuscripts this thick.
Yeah. And do you think, Crystal, like, I'm just thinking from that business perspective, that because we get to leverage this tool, does it now then make time more cost effective for people who want to go down this process and more affordable to go, well, if this is reducing your time here, you could invest in writing a book or a chapter, because then your time is not, like, what do you see, I suppose, the benefits of making it more accessible for
Yeah,
people to write a
absolutely.
book?
Yeah, well, when I first started my publishing company, my goal was to actually help people self-publish. So after I wrote my book, people would come to me and say, "Oh, how did you do that?" Because I self-published. And so I started doing workshops around the region through libraries about, okay, this doesn't have to be expensive and this doesn't have to be hard. I can teach you how to self-publish. So coming from that side of things, I realized, and I'm realizing now, I ended up writing a book called 6 Steps to Self-Publishing so that people could buy like a manual on how to publish a book. I need to upgrade that. It's 3 years old now. And that's because the world of AI has actually made things not only more cost effective, but they're reducing the amount of time that publishing is taking. So with a simple AI editing assistant, you can spend, rather than spending 6 months on editing a manuscript, you could maybe potentially bring that right back down to 6 weeks. So it's certainly impacting, absolutely, the ability for people to do more with their time, but also use their time more effectively, for sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's made so many processes in the self-publishing process. Well, for example, the self-publishing side of things, I mean, there's certain things that are now we don't even need to do because it's happening automatically.
Yeah.
Mm. Which
So where do
is so
you,
exciting.
yeah,
So exciting for people.
yeah. So where
Yeah.
do you see, I suppose, the future of your business, like, expanding what you're doing, connecting with people, like your
Yep.
family, in terms of your time? Because obviously this gives you more time to spend with them and be present. Like, what do you, and I know we were talking about being present and not to worry about the future, but
Of
what is
course.
it that you, like, I
Oh,
suppose,
yeah.
feel and sense for your future and family and business?
Yeah, well, I think it's always important. It's equally important to live in the now and be super present, but it's also important to have goals and aspirations to keep motivated for what's ahead. Um, and so I'm just going to put myself totally out there. I want Bowerbird Publishing to be nationwide. I want it to be known all around Australia. And the reason I want that is because I'm not another major publisher. I'm not Allen and Unwin. I'm not Penguin. I'm completely different. I really, really pride myself on working with authors rather than taking their work, making it Bowerbird Publishing's work, and then churning it out in mass production. So it's all about educating authors on how to believe in themselves, but also believe in their storytelling, and showcase their work through their book. So yeah, I always say I want it to be known that Bowerbird Publishing is amazing. And look, I guess the way I'm going to get there and the way I see that happening is to just continue to remain super authentic and be really service based. So I really pride myself on the fact that when people ring Bowerbird Publishing or email Bowerbird Publishing, they speak to me. I don't believe in project managing from a distance. I want to be hands-on with the whole process, and that ensures that the author's vision is seen to duality. Because I feel like there's nothing worse than having an idea for a creative concept and then someone saying, "Yeah, I can help you do that," and then it turns out completely not what you wanted, like completely different. I find that very frustrating as a creative person. So but yeah, look, it's interesting. I do wonder often how I will make this happen. I currently work during school hours, which I love because I've got three children still at primary school and my eldest at high school. So for me, that's a really important that work-life balance concept, that I have to maintain. Um, I'm also very conscious of the fact that at some point my children will be grown and gone. And this is a wonderful profession that I can do till I'm grey and crippled. I can sit at a desk even when I'm old, as long as I'm within my mind, good within my mind, I'm okay. So it's all about nurturing my business and laying down really strong foundations and just continuing to have a really positive impact on the publishing industry and just paving the way while I'm making, little waves in a really big ocean. So that one day, once my children, I can extend my working hours beyond school hours, I can really take off and soar and create a bigger corporation. So, yeah, I do look to the future. I'm very excited about the future, but I'm also really focused on maintaining extremely high standards in business practices. I've got a wonderful business model and just remaining super authentic and yeah, just being myself and letting that speak for itself too, having confidence in that, yeah, in that aspect.
Oh, I know, Flea, and I definitely feel that. I feel that
Oh,
authenticity.
it's hard to say, it's hard to put yourself out there and want extraordinary for yourself. It's but yeah, I mean, touching back to what we spoke to right in the very beginning, I'm really am feeling like I do live my life without fear. And for me, I do have that attitude of, well, what's the worst that can happen? If I say it and it doesn't happen, well, I'll either
Yeah.
have a really good lesson I've learnt from and I will be bigger and better, or it will be a lesson that I will say, okay, we tried that and it didn't work. Let's move on to the next big thing. So, yeah, I'm super excited about it.
Beautiful. And Crystal, if people want to connect with you that are listening in and maybe they have a story or they want to talk about self-publishing, how can they connect with you?
Sure. Well, I've started up, I have a wonderful website. It's www.crystalleonardi.com. Otherwise, social media. So Bowerbird Publishing is where you'll find me. Yeah, I'm always open to inquiries. I love reading manuscripts. I do manuscript appraisals. So often people write a book and they have no idea what to do next. So I find it really, really beneficial if you can have someone who's in the industry who can give you some ideas on how to improve it or what's great about it and where it sits in the market at the moment. So, yeah, always open and willing to touch base with new people. And even if it's just to be a sounding board, you absolutely don't need to have a contract with me to talk to me. I'm here to be a guiding light for whoever needs it.
Beautiful. And please pop your website underneath your name. So guys, check it out. And I think we've tagged Crystal in our socials as well. So it's beautiful to support people that are passionate. And Flea, did you have anything else to add into that? Any final messages?
No, I think we covered that. Intuition was also there, which I feel like we've spoken about a fair bit without actually using the word, like trusting yourself,
Yeah.
trusting the creative process. For those lovely mathematical and science people that don't believe in the woo-woo, remember
Mm,
that when you are looking for number patterns, you're
that's
in
really
creation, solving a problem. If you're scientific and you're looking for a new resource or a new way of doing things, the answers are there and available to us through that intuitive process, through that creative aspect. And this is where curiosity and connection really play a part in the grand scheme of things. So
mm,
nothing is impossible because it does not exist.
mhm,
I love that. I love that. And this beautiful thread of like talking about existence, polarities, creativity, being led to your soul purpose. are all beautiful themes that are upcoming in our next global summit, Turnkey Transformation. And we've heard Crystal's beautiful turnkey moment that shifted her whole trajectory of how she was searching for more. And we get to share more of these experiences in this beautiful summit. We've already got 23 speakers. We have a beautiful venue at House of Alchemy up at the Sunshine Coast for the first 2 days. We've got amazing panels that will blow your mind and talk about more of these perhaps woo-woo things, taboo things, but also coming from a sense of integrity, of truth, of storytelling, of people's experiences in these realms. And perhaps it may spark some creativity within you, remembrances within you, and truths that maybe get to be unlocked because you hear the story, you feel the essence of the people speaking and sharing that. And this is the power of storytelling. So come in, check it out, guys. You can visit us at www.awæcnianacademy.com. And I think we're taking in a few more speakers, closing next week, and getting ready for an amazing summit. So if you're listening in, stayed in this long, tune in, and we'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much, Crystal, for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.